Hi, and welcome back to Digital Storytelling. This is Carrie. I just want to recap what we've done so far. In Lesson 1, we looked at the digital camera basics where we learned how to manipulate our camera. We also touched base on macros elements, which are those up-close elements. In Lesson 2, we continue talking about macros, and we use the macro setting on our camera as well as just zooming in on an object to get a nice close-up. And then we put those macros elements into a focal point. We kind of tried to tell a story and center a picture with a focal point. So this time, this lesson, number 3, we're going to do rule of thirds, and that includes frames and angles, and we're going to figure out unique ways to center our portraits, or our pictures, not our portraits, our pictures, to help tell our digital story. So what is the rule of thirds? And if you think like a math person, you would know that thirds have to do with fractions. And we're going to take our picture and basically divide it up into thirds. And that would be vertically as well as horizontally, so that you would have like 9 parts to each picture. Let me show you what I mean. If we take an image, or if we're setting up our picture, we're going to imagine this grid. It has 4 lines. Right here we've got our vertical lines, and then right here we have our horizontal lines. And these 4 lines intersect, giving us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 panels for which we can center a picture or set up our picture. We can also use 3 at a time, so we might have a picture with one whole section here, or we might have a picture with just one section. It depends, and I'm going to show you some examples, and we're going to talk about the different ways that you can use rule of thirds to frame a picture. Why rule of thirds is important in photography is that basically, like we said with focal point, your eyes, the viewer's eyes, are naturally drawn to a certain point in that picture. And with rule of thirds, it happens to be the intersection points. So where those lines met up, your eye just somehow is naturally drawn to that part of the picture. So this is a really nice way of setting up a picture. It really helps tell a story, and you can really put a lot of nice detail into a picture using rule of thirds. So here's an example. Using the top horizontal line, we can frame our picture here. This might be sky, and this might be building in this lower portion. Let me show you another one. We can do it in the center. You might have, like if you're in a classroom or a library, you might have a shelf, and you might have books or something here that you're focusing on. This might be wall or empty space, and you might have maybe even chalkboard or something down here. Another example, and this is what a lot of people do when they go to the beach, they have the sand as it meets the horizon, so this would be sky, and you can almost see the sun in this little panel here as it's setting over the water, and this would be the focal point here, and it would naturally draw us into some of these lines. And then the converse is true. We can do the vertical elements as well. We might have an image, say it's fall, and we've got the grass here, the whole picture is grass. We might have a nice leaf here off to the side. Might also have a person here, and they might be doing something, and then here would be some background that's kind of plain. And we can do the center third, where we can frame something here. Again, it might be something that pulls our eyes in, so we might have like a walkway or a path that's leading us into the picture, and this would be the focal point. And then this side as well, kind of opposite that leaf one, we might have a person here, and there might be some empty space here, an object here. Maybe it's a corner, like a corner of a wall, and you would have a portion here and a portion here kind of pulling out. You'll see when I show you the examples that the angles then kind of meet up in these frames here where you can pull more into the picture. And that's what I mean by a frame or an angle using rule of thirds. So let's get to it. Here we have an image of insect here, a bee, and it's on the flower. And you kind of see this third pretty much is flower, and this third here pretty much is the insect, and then this third is blank. And right where the insect's eye is, we can see that that's the intersection point. That's where these two lines meet. And we're drawn to here, and it brings us to the flower. And we can even see the legs and the different body segments, and they're kind of matched up too along this line. And it's just a nice way to pull everything together and tell that story. We get information from this picture. We can see that the insect is feeding or getting something from the flower here. And it kind of gives us, we know what's going on because we can see it in the picture, and it kind of tells that story. Here's another one. We have a lady, and she's standing here, and we've got in this panel here the lamp. And then in the bottom section, we have this table. So you can kind of see it's almost framed like an L, like the letter L. And again, where these 2 points here intersect, we kind of are brought into her face. So this is what we see in the picture, is this intersecting point here. And then it tells us like she's getting ready for dinner, or maybe she's setting the table for company, or maybe she's a hostess in a restaurant and she's leading somebody to the table. It gives us some clues from the picture that we can make a judgment from. Here again we have another one. It's a person. This one's a little bit closer up, and looks like he's giving a speech. We've got that from the microphone. And again, where these lines intersect, these 2 panels here, brought right to his face. So we're naturally led to look at this area. And then the clues also in the picture, we kind of see there was windows back here. Like I said, we can assume that he's giving a speech. He's got a microphone, and then we've got this speaker here in the background. And this is how a picture like this is different from a portrait, in that we have more clues here, and it's not just centered on his face. We get information from this picture, and it doesn't necessarily have to be just about him. We do have some clues to the rest of the room. Here's another example. And when we get to color and contrast, we'll talk about this picture maybe again, because there is some good color and contrast. I've taken the lines off, but you can still imagine them here. There's a line with the water, and we've got this section of rock. You've kind of got another panel here of water, and then the ground. And then right here, where this third would meet, we've kind of got our child here in the center, which leads us to the other kids. And neat story, you can tell that they're probably at a zoo. And they're just kind of having fun with the color and the shadows. Here's another image. We've got a Madagascar, looks like hissing cockroach. And the way it's framed, right here, right where these lines would intersect, we've got our cockroach's head. And you can kind of see that that's what we look at. And then that kind of leads us to the abdomen or the thorax, and you can kind of see those lines there. That brings more to the picture. Another example here. You can kind of see the third here. There's a third here at the bottom with shadow from what looks like trees. We've got another third here kind of created by that sidewalk. You can see that it doesn't have to be necessarily right along that line. In the vicinity is good. And then we've got our little girl, and she is framed up in this section. So we've got something going on here. We've got something going on here. And then I just like this picture because the sidewalk, the way it's angled, and the way this sidewalk is angled, it naturally pulls you into the object that we're looking at, and that's this little girl running with a stuffed animal. Here's another picture. We've got a road that's kind of bringing us in to the picture. We've got this whole section here of just trees. We've got another frame here where we've got the boy up front, and if you notice, his shadow creates a third here. So this one's a little bit more complex than the other ones. You can see that these kids here are in almost the center third, but the way the road's bringing you in, it just frames them up nicely using the rule of thirds. And here's another example. And when we do talk about color and contrast, shadows play an important part. And this picture, we've kind of got a unique perspective as well. We've kind of tipped the camera, and we can see that the boy is kind of framed in by these pillars in the background. The road again kind of leads us in, which brings us right about to his face. And if we look at the story that the picture's telling, we can kind of see that he's got binoculars and he's looking off in the distance. And we can kind of make some assumptions about what he might be looking at. There are trees in the background, so maybe there are birds or something that he's looking at. But again, it kind of brings us to a reverse L here because we've got his shadow in this section that meet to his feet. And sometimes the focal point doesn't actually have to be a face, but this kind of brings us, this angle here and this angle here, brings us to him. And we do see not only the boy, but we see his shadow quite nicely. So this assignment for this lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to take pictures of interesting objects, either in a library or outside. It could be at a school, it could be at a workplace. But the first part of the assignment, I really want you to focus on things. So like the cockroach example, like the bee example, you can set up books on a shelf. You might have frames like a door frame or a window. Chairs and tables naturally have a lot of those angles that go on that can kind of help you frame it up. Think about objects, think about things, and try to tell a story, try to put them into the rule of thirds. Once you've done that, once you've taken about 10 pictures like that, then the next part of the assignment is to use the rule of thirds, but take pictures of people. And I just want to remind everybody again that when you take pictures of people, be sure that you get their permission before photographing them. Just a common courtesy to do. And then if you do publish pictures, it's nice to let that person know that you're going to be using their photograph for your blog or for a website or that kind of stuff. Consider the unique perspectives. That one with the zoo where we had the blue and the kids and their faces we really couldn't see, but we can see their outlines as a shadow really nicely. The other one with the boy and the binoculars, just tip the camera and see how that might help give you a little bit more perspective using the rule of thirds. So again, maybe 10 pictures here, and we'll post them later. Next week we're going to move on to color and contrast, and we're also going to look at portraits. So good luck with this assignment, and we'll see you back for Lesson 4, Color and Contrast and Portraits.